saying to yourself, damn, what is going on here?
This is bad. This is very bad.
Caitlin Clark is clearly a catalyst for a business that was, and let's be honest, Caitlin to some degree financially saved the WNBA. It was hemorrhaging money for years.
It's actually to drive revenue so we can give the players extra income opportunities. I had to actually educate the players. They're like, good, 75 million divided by 144.
With their recent bombshell about Caitlin Clark's new boss, ESPN is obviously not holding back. They constantly manage to stir things up as if they have a radar for controversy, and now they're aiming for Clark's new coach. ESPN and WNBA officials simply cannot deal with the idea that the team is finally acquiring a coach who can truly make things better. At the end of the day, with her WNBA rookie season complete, let's say it. The point guard with the most points in a season in WNBA history, the rookie guard with the most double-doubles in WNBA history, the rookie with the most points in WNBA history, and the rookie with the most assists in W history. It's almost like they treat Clark and the Fever like an afterthought, always the ignored underdog. ESPN has repeatedly engaged in this tactic, disparaging Clark in an attempt to attract attention. Good news? No, that doesn't attract the same number of views as negativity. Here's another reason to be critical of ESPN, though. It is always a unique experience to be asked to return to a location that you helped create. At this stage of my career, I certainly wasn't considering this as a possibility, but I'll admit that Mel Raines is an excellent recruiter, so I'm going to enlist her assistance with some free agents. Because they're out here stoking the flames rather than celebrating something that might truly change the WNBA, like Kelly Krauskopf's return to the Indiana Craze. They almost seem to be allergic to optimism, don't they? You would think that they would pause to acknowledge that Krauskopf is essentially the team's architect. Come on, she isn't just a new employee applying for a job. Beginning in 2000 and continuing through 2018, including the 2012 championship victory, she created the Fever from the ground up. However, ESPN would want to play the question, is she really qualified for the position like her entire legacy? A card is insufficient to dispel any worries. WNBA negotiations. Let's get right to the facts and ignore all of this ESPN nonsense. Kelly Krauskopf going back to the Indiana Fever is not the drama-packed story they're attempting to create. Given that she is the driving force behind this team's success, it's almost laughable that they are attempting to cast doubt on her credibility. Please stop giving ESPN the impression that she is somehow out of touch after being absent for 6 years. That's about as rational as suggesting you forget how to ride a bike if you haven't touched one in a long. Her couch hasn't been occupied by Kelly. With the Indiana Pacers, she has been immersed in the NBA trenches, learning every aspect of roster management, contract negotiations, and game planning. You believe she's lost her edge? She's sharpened it? No. My list had always included scalability and eventual expansion, but we didn't. Want to jump right in since we needed new owners, like new ownership groups. As everyone familiar with sports in this area knows, being a sport is a slog. Let's discuss her period of fever. She made the team flourish rather than just help them get by. We're talking about repeated playoff runs and a 2012 championship win under her guidance. That's legendary status, not just a resume boost. Naturally, though, ESPN ignores that as if it were nothing because stirring up controversy sells more than positive articles. It's absurd that they claim Krauskopf might not be the best fit at this time. If anything, her NBA experience has expanded her already extensive toolkit. It's comparable to advancing in a video game. ESPN acts as though none of it matters, even though she is bringing all of the abilities she has acquired with the Pacers to the WNBA. The WNBA will experience many wonderful things because of Caitlin Clark. Now, add Caitlin Clark to the mix. Who better to assemble a championship caliber squad around a young, explosive player who is finally ready to blow the league apart than the woman who accomplished that with Tamika Catchings? ESPN is attempting to portray Krauskopf's comeback as a risk, but in reality, it's the ideal scenario. One of the most talented basketball players and one of the game's brightest minds are collaborating. I'm angry about it. You feel like your meal ticket is being attacked all the time. There have all been dirty plays. This goes beyond simply filling a position. The goal here is to establish the groundwork for an entirely new period of supremacy. Clark's got the game, the leadership, and the star power. Furthermore, Krauskopf is an expert at assembling a successful squad around a top player. She is more than willing to repeat what she has already done. Here's the problem, though. ESPN misses the true narrative because they are all about controversy. They're skipping over how Krauskopf's NBA experience provides her a whole new perspective on topics like contracts, team relationships, and strategy. Do you believe that her Fever will return the same way? No, she is prepared to turn that team around and has much more knowledge to utilize now. Because there isn't any drama involved, ESPN simply doesn't want to acknowledge that they might be mistaken about her. Not to mention that she was virtually pleaded with to return by Mel Raines, president and COO of Pacers Sports and Entertainment. That ought to tell you everything. The reason for this is that she is precisely what the Fever needs to regain its power. In addition to having experience and a plan, she now has Caitlin Clark to build upon. player in the League of Boston and Caitlin Clark, and we'll keep adding to that. However, I want our team to be the nation's top team and a long-lasting brand like Apple or something. We have a genuine opportunity here, really, that, in my opinion, should be a future objective. However, ESPN seemed to have entirely missed the storyline around Kelly Krauskopf's return to Indiana Fever. Instead of discussing the team's incredible potential, they are more concerned in creating controversy. Isn't that shocking? They almost seem to be deliberately downplaying Caitlin Clark's growing influence in the WNBA. To be honest, Clark's influence is sufficient to cause a stir. And Kelly is the ideal one to capitalize on that trend and transform the craze into a true powerhouse. Fever discussing the League of Boston or Caitlin Clark's actions from last night. We've all kind of felt like it's finally here, so we can finally have the chat. Furthermore, I don't need to explain what the Fever is. People ask me, what's that logo after I spent 10 or 12 years? What does that signify? What does Fever signify, I wonder? But that's what you do, The way you are is that way. However, does ESPN care? Obviously not. Instead of discussing the situation, they prefer other topics. Rising enthusiasm for a visionary makeover. Cut it up. Kelly Krauskopf doesn't mince words. She has stated that Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell are her Fever reconstructed foundations. Admit it, this trio isn't just strong, it's the makings of a WNBA great squad. Her aggressive, game-changing technique has made Caitlin Clark famous. Rest assured that I know her future. She is an important part of our team. This makes her really talented. She was important. Kelsey Mitchell, a 7-year veteran, and Aaliyah Boston, a rising star and top front court player, follow. A general manager would wish to build on this. ESPN would rather repeat a story about Kelly's WNBA absence than celebrate. Starting with Kelsey Mitchell. In my previous group, she was drafted. Pokey Chapman coached and managed us. I watched Kelsey play at a USA Basketball Santa Barbara training camp. I'm watching our draft pick right now, I told Pokey. She is. Kelly didn't come to her news conference to reminisce about the good old days. Her goal is the future. She discusses establishing a winning culture and framework for budding stars to thrive. She knows that Clark's progress and the team's success depend on experience. Hey, DNA, if you enjoy playing the game and competing, you'll fit right in with this team. Since our goal is to win, this is a successful franchise after all. We've consistently been in the playoffs and won games. And I intend to bring us back to that degree of regularity. And that takes commitment. That requires players who have a genuine interest in. Naturally, though, ESPN is willfully ignoring this entire tactic. When Kelly is actually preparing the Fever for long-term success, they're behaving as though she's just dusting off old playbooks. They seem unwilling to accept that Krauskopf is building a club that will do more than merely have a successful season or two. They want to rule for many years to come. Additionally, ESPN is completely disregarding her strategic genius while they are busy casting doubt on her. They almost seem reluctant to acknowledge that Kelly's comeback might be the best development for the Fever in years. Teams I've worked with have taken a while to come together and gel. Years. I mean, it doesn't happen in 4 months. It took a few years, but it did happen. The progress they made and the fact that Christy is a resilient leader truly pleased me. She's a cultural builder. This isn't about temporary solutions. Krauskopf is taking a long-term approach. She's astute enough to see that having a few young stars isn't the only way to succeed. It's about assembling a cohesive, experienced, and well-balanced staff. Kelly is making sure that Caitlin and Aaliyah have the appropriate veterans in their lives to assist steer their growth because they are the future. Anyone with eyes can see that Kelly's strategy is exactly what the Fever needs right now, regardless of how much ESPN tries to stir things up. She possesses the kind of endurance to follow through on her objectives. She is also a wonderful leader and a decent person. I was impressed too. And let's just take a moment to admit that, in terms of Christy's side of the story, ESPN is truly missing the boat. Come on, the woman's first season was nothing short of an adventure. Nevertheless, she was able to guide the Indiana Fever through some significant upheaval. They settled into a rhythm, following the Olympic break, and they played well early in the season. After those 10 games, I believe she finished with scores of 18 and 12. Naturally, everything went south in the final 11. Additionally, 3 of those defeats came against finals teams. Therefore, it's difficult for a young team to accomplish that kind of growth. Yet, rather than praising her, ESPN is too busy casting suspicions and trying to stir up controversy. Normal, yes. Coach Christie led a youthful, inexperienced team. They weren't perfect, but when are they in their first season? ESPN doesn't mention her perseverance, fortitude, and how she kept the team together despite all the challenges. It's worth highlighting. Long enough that not all players are satisfied at season's end. Don't panic or react, just stay the course. It's my obligation to guarantee that we have the best team possible on the court. Not to mention the Fever persisted. Christie's team finished the season with a 7-4 record. The last 11 games have seen 7 wins. After all the ups and downs, this team was gelling. A new head coach can be proud of that. But is this turnaround relevant to ESPN? Absolutely not. It appears they are too focused on finding anything negative to say to notice the court's progress. Christie's recent games showed her leadership talents and WNBA potential. I'll maintain in touch, meet their representatives, and reintroduce myself to everyone. Even the best coaches need good leadership to thrive. This is where Krauskopf helps. For this team to compete, Christie needs Kelly's experience. ESPN fails to recognize that Krauskopf is necessary to maximize Christie's coaching potential. Normal. Yes, Coach Christie led a youthful, inexperienced team. They weren't perfect, but when are they in their first season? ESPN doesn't mention her perseverance, fortitude, and how she kept the team together despite all the challenges. It's worth highlighting. Long enough that not all players are satisfied at season's end. Don't panic or react, just stay the course. It's my obligation to guarantee that we have the best team possible on the court. Not to mention the fever persisted. Christie's team finished the season with a 7-4 record. The last 11 games have seen 7 wins. After all the ups and downs, this team was gelling. A new head coach can be proud of that. But is this turnaround relevant to ESPN? Absolutely not. It appears they are too focused on finding anything negative to say to notice the court's progress. Christie's recent games showed her leadership talents and WNBA potential. I'll maintain in touch, meet their representatives, and reintroduce myself to everyone. Even the best coaches need good leadership to thrive. This is where Krauskopf helps. For this team to compete, Christie needs Kelly's experience. ESPN fails to recognize that Krauskopf is necessary to maximize Christie's coaching potential.